In this episode, you will discover why you still have decades ahead to build, grow, and thrive. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast helping women in career and life transitions achieve clarity on their next steps so they can transform uncertainty into an energizing next chapter. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. If you're wondering what's next in your career or life, you are in the right place. Through solo and guest episodes, you'll gain practical tips, tools, and inspiration to help you uncover blocks, gain confidence, and be, do, and have what you want. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. What if your next 40 years could be your best yet? Are you ready to redefine midlife and take control of your future with confidence and financial security? In this episode, you will discover why you still have decades ahead to build, grow, and thrive, counterintuitive financial tips that could set you up for your long-term success, and practical steps to invest in your health, career, and finances without fear or regret. So keep listening to start designing a vibrant and financially secure and fulfilling next chapter, because you're not done yet. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a career and life transitions podcast. If you're asking yourself, what's next? You are in the right place. I interview incredible women across the globe for this podcast who share their stories of reinvention and who will give you their insights and expertise on how to rediscover who you really are, what you really want, and how to get there in this next stage of life. This week, I'm thrilled to have on the show Sherry Finkel Murphy. Sherry is the founder and CEO of Madrina Molly, which provides insights and education for women who are actively designing their second 50 years. She's passionate about helping professional women redefine their phase after work. As a certified financial planner, chartered financial consultant, and retirement income certified professional, Sherry draws on her extensive expertise and personal experience to update the old retirement narratives. And she empowers women to take control of their finances, their health, and their futures with optimism and confidence. So pleased to have you on the show today, Sherry. How are you doing?
I am peachy, thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's a really interesting topic. And with all your experience and expertise, I'm excited to get into what you do. So let's start there, I guess. If you could share for the audience how you came to do what you're doing today and what inspired you to create Madrina Molly. What is it? And maybe just a bit about your reinvention story.
I'd be delighted to. I think that I like to describe where I am as Sherry 4.0 because I'm a career reinventionist from the get-go. This really is I'm going to call it third and a half because I'm in the same domain, but life comes at you fast. And a couple of years ago, end of 2023 is when I officially completed the sale of my financial planning practice. But the reason started a year before when my stepdaughter announced her second pregnancy in the Midwest.
Nice.
And the FINRA SEC announced that, okay, financial advisors, your COVID holiday is over. You're back in the office 51% of the time. And just as I had said to my husband, we have to help and prepared to live in two locations. My 97-year-old mother is in Saratoga Springs. The kids and the grands are in Cincinnati. And as I made that decision, I said, oops, we need to call an audible. I can't be in the office. So that set a whole bunch of things in motion.
Right.
this is my way of continuing to practice as a certified financial planner professional, but to be virtual and to do some what I'll call unfinished business, mission-based business, because in my practice, I was working with, I'll call them alpha women, high-income women and their families who weren't seeing themselves in the domain. In other words, the lived experience of sandwich generation women and women approaching 50 in the workplace to get to the finish line of their careers and not having a cooperative corporate relationship, not having a cooperative lifestyle relationship, or not supportive, I should say, none of which is anyone's fault. I don't want to demonize anybody, but we don't have that in the data. The data is built, the financial data and the stories are built around 20th century men.
Right.
And a whole new ballgame for professional women. So that's the unfinished business part. And I created a community that I could manage virtually, both from the Midwest and from New York State. And I bounce between 2 Zoom rooms and have laptop, will Madrid
travel.
Right.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I love that because we have to adjust. I mean, obviously COVID really changed everybody's lives, and the fact that you were able to do what you love and still manage to do it and which fits your lifestyle. So that's fantastic. So maybe so Madrina Molly is tell me what it is. What is it? A community?
It is a community. It is a series of publications. What I am doing is I am providing access to my knowledge base and to resources and mini courses, engagement to answer questions without product placement. So women have the advantage of receiving fiduciary care, but will not be pressured to have their money management changed or purchase any financial solutions. So I'm being a little disruptive, I think, with the industry, because it is literally the work of financial advisors to say, I can do a better job managing your money than you can. And I'm not so certain that that's true for all of them, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I love the community aspect, right? Because if you have a community of women who are in the same similar circumstances, then not only do they learn from you, but they learn from one another, right? So in that respect, one of the themes of this podcast is really confidence, right? And how confidence is really the key to really an amazing next chapter in our lives, especially as women. And so you have a philosophy is that you say not young, not done. And so tell us about that, and how do you believe that women can gain the confidence past 50, and some tips from you?
I am excited to. And remember, I am not just an advisor. I'm a member of this community with my 97-year-old mother and my 1.5-year-old youngest grandchild. So this is crazy that 4 and 5 generations are living contemporaneously for the first time in history. And that's the key, I think, to my advice would be to think thanatologically, as Andrew J. Scott, the economist, has said in his book, The Longevity Imperative. And thanatological age is the number of years you are expected to live. So the actuaries publish their numbers that you're expected to live N years based upon what age you are. What they don't tell you is that the older you get, the older you get. So the thanatological age, as opposed to chronological age, which is 50, a 50-year-old woman, chronologically 50, thanatologically, she is likely to live for approximately 32 to 35 more years. Think about that. Think about what you've accomplished and what I've accomplished in the last 35 years. If she remains healthy to 65, she gets another 5 years tacked on that. So now we're talking 37 to 39 years. That's almost 40 years. So if you pull into 50 and you feel like you're washed up and, I'm a hot mess, there's no sense in investing in my skills, there's no sense in investing in my health, there's no sense in investing in my money, I waited too long. First off, that's not right. But secondly, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So rather than view ourselves as deteriorating assets at 50, my thought is, are you kidding me? You have almost 40 years to go. And now you have this knowledge base so that you don't have to do things by trial and error. And when I remind this cohort that there's so much runway, it makes them feel a lot better. And there really is the math of it from especially the most important, oh, I haven't saved enough. I was busy having experiences. I spent money on the kids, whatever. Women come to me and they make themselves wrong. And my thought is, no, don't make yourself wrong. We have mothers for that. Forget it. I know who to call if I want criticism. Let's instead acknowledge what we've done right and realize that we have 2 or 3 more doublings of the market to go. And our job is simply not to distribute the assets prematurely. So again, I think people like to hear that. They like to hear invest in your health because there are wonderful metrics about improvements you can make at any age. And so I guess I lied. I'm going to demonize the press. I'm going to demonize somebody. It might as well be the press. All they do is harp on the bad side of aging. And as if it's some kind of penalty. Yes, we do lose 3 to 8% muscle mass every decade after 30, after our 30s. But you can also build muscle at any age. And there are these wonderful social media accounts of grandmas lifting.
Yeah.
I don't know if you recall, 60 Minutes did an expose of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's workout routine while she was still alive. And it involved sort of amazing one-legged squats, assisted by the trainer. But the trainer held her hands and she did one-legged squats.
Yes.
And that is the origin of the notorious RBG moniker. But I looked at it and I said, are you kidding me? She's toileting at 90.
Yes.
She's practicing being able to get on and off the toilet herself. And so now, of course, I'm laughing because, Kavita, you're like, you brought toileting into my podcast? I think this is real. I think we invest in ourselves. We invest in our ability to use technology to communicate with our grandchildren and with our banks and with our healthcare providers. And we need to consider that, but we can and we will.
I love that. We talked earlier about when we first met about the phanatological age, and it's such when you think about it that way, it's like basically you said 40 years, like we still have 40 years ahead of us. And so if you're not going to be confident because of that and prepare yourself, as you said, acknowledge what you've done right. And I think that's so important. Acknowledge how great you are, acknowledge what you've done, all the great things that you've accomplished, all your skills, all the passions that you have, and invest in your health, invest in yourselves, invest in your knowledge. And so I think those are great words of wisdom, because that's what's going to give us the confidence to move forward. And no, I really appreciate that, the perspective. I'm sure the listeners will as well, because we tend to think, like you said, the media says, we're over 50 and it's all done. We're all washed up, but
it's new language. We need some language to describe the cohort and what we're doing, which is why I'm always doing #afterwork phase, because I don't know what to call it either. It's not retirement. It's the next thing. We sort of have, and this is a 20th century thing where we suddenly have 20 years between end of work and old age. Old age is only the last 5 to 10 years. If you do it right, and take care of yourself, it's only the last 5 to 10 years of your life. So there could be 20 years between that, and we don't really have a good name for this.
I don't like the word retirement, to be honest.
Me neither.
So that's wonderful, Sherry. Thank you so much. So one other thing that's really I find fascinating is you speak about the triple decker club sandwich generation. And I have an idea what that is, but for our listeners, perhaps you can explain what that means and how does does this, I know this might be a big question, but how does this kind of affect a woman's career and life who are in this transition phase?
Thank you for asking. I love talking about the triple-decker club sandwich generation. And that, of course, reflects this contemporaneous 4 and 5 generations. If in the 19th century, the goal was to reduce child mortality, in the 20th century, it was adding to lifespan. But that 100-year life, which is well articulated by the Stanford Center for Longevity, et cetera, is not linear the way you and I know it. So we think of a 3-phase life where we spend 20 years growing up and becoming educated, maybe 25, give or take. We then spend the next 30 to 40 working. And then we spend the other third, however long that is, in retirement, whatever the heck that means. And a 100-year life can not work that way for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is you would have a terrible early life if all you did was scrimp to support 40 years of retirement, which is, of course, not guaranteed. So we're going to see, rather than a 3-phase life, we're going to see life look a lot more like women have lived it anyway, in and out of the workforce. Maybe some education, then to work or start a business, then back into more education, maybe spending 20s living to travel, getting that out of the way, and then getting serious. There's a lot more time, and it calls for a lot more flexibility. So one of the things that such a long lifespan means is that we have a narrowing window of freedom in our 50s and 60s. 20 years ago, if you had promised yourself a 30-day trip to Europe as a reward at 65, you would retire, whatever that word means again, and you would go spend a month in Europe. But now you may have a parent who is 85 or so, who is still living independently in their home. And you are reluctant to disappear for 30 days because you have a parent who is on the cusp of frailty. And that's a new thing. Similarly, children have a later launch date. So we have this phase called emerging adulthood between 20 and 30, where kids are not coming off the payroll, so to speak, as soon. And that collapses the window of freedom. If you are still funding children at home, it tends to push you into a later retirement, retiring early, much because it's much easier to fund them out of cash flow than it is out of savings.
Right.
I don't want to fund my kids out of retirement savings. I want to fund them out of cash flow. And so you can see that there's that pressure from both sides that you're experiencing, and it expands to 4 generations. And multi-generational living, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is financial, has been increasing steadily since 1971, and it has quadrupled since then. It increases every year. It reflects this multi-generational sandwich. It reflects the fact that we've become a club sandwich, not just a sandwich. And it, like nobody's going anywhere. The kids aren't leaving and the parents aren't going anywhere. So it reflects this. It also reflects the influence of the global South, where and I'm citing Pew Research, for 28% of the people who live multi-generationally, that's the way it's always been. Grandma comes with. And I'm in Ohio. We have this lovely park with walking paths right outside the door. And after dinner in the summer, I see 3 generations strolling. It's mostly an Indo-Asian professional population. So it is the kids in their strollers and on their bicycles, and the parents walking together, and grandma in her sari. And so we are now in a place where grandma comes with, and I'm not certain that's a bad thing.
Oh, I mean, well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that is, I'm Indian, as you know, right? And this is normal in Indian society.
Right.
In fact, my husband just got back from India on a trip, and he met his aunt, and they still live together. That his aunt, their son, her son, and their kids. And I said, "Wow, they're still." Because I remember going there like 20 years ago, and I said they're in the same house. They're still living together. And she says, "Yeah, it works beautifully. They have 3 levels. They each have a level, and it's wonderful." So, I mean, obviously, I'm not sure. I obviously it depends on society and how they are able to support that, right? But
So bringing it back to, I'll just give you a quick example of how it can work.
mhm,
Because in the US, we don't plan for these things. And I'm implying that perhaps we should. I am not, my mother is not living with me, but we are very intentionally within 15 minutes of one another. So
yeah,
it just takes a little bit of creativity.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I totally believe in that. And what something that you said earlier about creativity and also being flexible. You mentioned that we can kind of conform to that third, where we're working for 40 years and then retire. Or we can be flexible and kind of go in and out of the workforce and go back to school if we want to, or start a business if we want to. And that's really what I really encourage my clients is to really think outside of the box. You're not too old to go back to school or to start your own business or to do or travel or whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
So I really believe that it's like we have to not conform to the expectations of what is supposed to be. I
You
think,
are so right. And it was
yeah,
so satisfying for me personally to discover that my brain still worked in my early 50s to recredential. Like, yay, I can do this. I can take the tests. And it excites me. Granted, I'm very nerdy, but just to know
yeah.
that I could was an accomplishment.
Well, exactly. I mean, so the process I take my clients through is okay. Well, let's find out what it is that really is going to drive you. It's going to light you up, and let's go for it in any way possible. If it means going back to school, then do it. And they're like, really? Can I go back to school? Yes, you can. Right. Mhm. So there's something that I want you to explain, and I really find this very fascinating. Is you call it something called the year of not saving, and it might not. You say it might not make good financial logistical sense for women planning their next phase, but why? Explain what that is, because that seems kind of counterintuitive. The year of not saving.
It is counterintuitive. And if one is saving for what I call the forget you fund, you might want to devote the money to that instead of the vacation. But here is the premise. And there's a little math here, but I promise it won't be overwhelming. We have in our head that we have to save for this future goal, for the most retirement. But the way money grows in the market, as you get within, say, 10 or 15 years to 10 or 15 years of retirement, or the retirement age, I should say, the money you will earn on new savings is less than the growth of your portfolio. So my example is this. At 55, I regularly plan to save $20,000 into my retirement portfolio. And let's say my corporate match is another 10. So that's $30,000. Money in the market, we assume as planners, doubles at the rate of 10 years, earning 7.2%. So it should double in 10 years. And that means that at 65, when I plan to leave my employment, that $1,000 has become $60,000. Follow me so far?
You kind of cut out a little bit. What comes into what? Just repeat that last bit.
The $30,000 that I had
Yeah.
planned to save at age 55
Yeah.
will be $60,000. It will
Okay.
have doubled
Yeah. Good. Yep.
by the time I'm 65.
Right.
However, if instead of doing that, I agree to defer spending down my retirement kitty for one more year, I may get a bigger bang for my buck. So let's say I have saved $500,000 in my retirement account by the time I am 55. by the time I am 65, that will be $1 million. If I defer spending it for one more year and it grows 1/10 more, right? Because money doubles in 10 years, I will have $1,100,000. $100,000 improvement is more than $60,000 improvement. So the bang for my buck, I get more bang for my buck if I defer distribution than I do if I save extra. And since we know we're living longer, it benefits all financial plans to defer distribution a few more years. I'm in favor of giving ourselves a gift. And that gift at 55 is take that $20,000 and either use it in your Forget You fund to create your next act, or use it for school, or take the vacation, or take the sabbatical. Technically, you were going to save it at age 55, so you are doing the thing at 56. But that is intended to refresh you and give you new life so that you can put your head down and get back to it. And it happens to work like a charm.
Wow.
I would say one other item, because it goes back to this triple-decker club sandwich. If you do this at 56, the chances are good your children are not trying to launch. So they're just prior to launch. They're adults. They can stay home alone, but they're just prior to launch. Also, your parents are 10 years younger, so they're not yet free.
So the magic advice is spend your money at 55.
Yes, it is. You stop thinking so linearly.
Yes.
You will do this when you are 65. Do it at 55. You have my permission.
Because you're also you're healthier, you're more vibrant, you have more energy, your kids are not as they can take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Hopefully your parents are also able to look after themselves and you're not worried about leaving them for an extended period of time. Yes.
Correct. And you make an excellent point, because I have seen this and it's sad. And that is, I have been in Eastern Europe walking on cobblestones 5-10 miles a day. A lot of cobblestones in Eastern Europe.
Yes.
And I've seen people struggle because they waited too long. Because you need healthy legs, you need healthy knees and hips. You need to be in shape to do heavy touring. I've seen people try to climb into Machu Picchu and be very unhappy because it's not easy. The Incas were in good shape. And so there's something to be said for not waiting to do those things. So you make a really good point.
Yeah. And it's also, as we talked about earlier, it's also about investing in your health earlier, because then you can climb Machu Picchu. One of the things that has struck me as you were talking and explaining this very, very interesting concept, Sherry, is that when I have a lot of my clients who are wanting to do new things, who are wanting to start a business, or who are wanting to leave their job that they kind of hate now, right? Let's say their main concern is, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this because I don't think I can make the money. I don't think I can. How am I going to do this? And so it's just about rethinking and reframing that in your mind, I believe. But from what you're saying is that it's going to be okay to take a little bit of time, give it 6 months, a year to figure it out. And once you do take that time and invest it in yourself, then it's amazing what will happen afterwards. I don't know what your thoughts on that.
I would argue that the sooner the better, with less expectation. So I always tell people, create that LLC before you need it, have the consultancy, build the webpage, and then don't do anything with it unless the opportunity comes up to maybe speak or be on a podcast or get a little press. Start the Etsy shop sooner. Do whatever it is you are going to do on the side, and give yourself 10 years to build up. Because I think that part of the challenge is that we expect instantaneous success. And why on earth would you put such a burden on yourself? Especially since you do have a long runway. So with no expectation, how about setting up shop sooner, whatever setting up shop means to you?
That's great advice. I love that, with no expectation, because that's the thing. You put so much pressure on ourselves to get that manifestation of everything. Like, oh, we'll make the money, and if I don't, what am I going to do? Whereas it's like, if you plan it ahead of time and give yourself the grace and the time to figure it out, and then you'll have it already set up. So wonderful. That's really great
Maybe
advice.
the first goal for any business should be to pay for itself anyway.
Yes.
I mean, that's really, it's recover that whatever cost, whatever investment is required, whether it's to get the license or to create the corporation. If it costs you $1,000 a month, I'm making this up, your job is to cover the $1,000 a month, not to make $1 million tomorrow.
Right.
Eventually you get your $1 million if you keep at it. And I think that's part of, especially with respect to longevity, waking up and falling in love with the process and not just being in love with the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Falling in love with the process means I love waking up and moving every day. I love tending to my skills. I love eating nourishing food. I love making my brain work. I enjoy and I find joy in what I am doing. If you fall in love with the process, the results come.
I believe that's so much. That's what I live by as well. Actually, I love that. Fall in love with the process, not the goal. I was going to ask you to kind of give me a bit of a last piece of advice about how women can control of their lives and be more confident in the next stage. But I think you've given it to me, unless you have something else to share.
I do. I have one
Yeah.
more piece of advice that I feel strongly about, because I have been divorced and repartnered. I mean, life comes at you fast. So I have been divorced and repartnered, among other things. And I love our partnership. I would say, well, my story involves asking for vegetable chopping and alternate hours and do this with me. This sort of, how can I support you? How can you support me in our respective endeavors? And I would say that you must engage a team. It is not my goal. It is our team goal. And as you go about it, enlisting help and making them part of it, and then thanking the team, that is an important part of acknowledging incremental progress, but it also keeps them helping you. And whether it is diet or exercise or a second act or a third act, we are community and we need everybody moving in the same direction. So I would say do that intentionally. Don't just expect support, give them a job to do.
Mm-hmm. Engage a team. Absolutely. And it can be a team that it could be a family, it could be a community, it could be whoever support. It could be, yes. Fantastic. That's so important. Yes, because we can't do it alone. I mean, we can try, but if you have the support of those that believe in you and encourage you rather than put you down, I think that's very important. So that's great advice. So thank you so much. Speaking of a team and in your community, tell us more about, Sherry, what's new, what's coming up for you, where our audience can find you, and all the good stuff that you want to share.
I would like to share that you can find me and us at Madrina Molly on our website, on Substack. You can get through to the community via the Substack or website portal and join us, or just become a free subscriber. That's fine too. I am excited because I am in mid-book proposal. Yay!
Nice.
Yes. So I am preparing 10 lessons that women can execute at 50. That will make for a brilliant second half. And my job, of course, is to bring our lived experience into the domain stories so that women see themselves and understand that, pardon my candor, if you were going to become an investing guru, you would have done that already. It's not necessary to become an investing guru to be successful. So let's get real. Let's honor our multi-generational, trying desperately to keep ourselves in corporate experience, and go forward. So thank you for asking. I'm going to be working to get that manuscript completed and get that out the door.
Wow, that's amazing. 10 lessons to execute at 50. I love it. Well, it's been such a pleasure and such a eye-opening discussion today, and great tips and great insights from your experience. And I'd encourage everybody who's listening to reach out to Sherry if they want more information, to join her community and to follow the lessons and the tips that we've talked about today, because it's so important to live the next stage of life with grace, vitality, health, and all of that, and a good financial backing as well. So thank you very much, Sherry. I appreciate you being
very
here.
much. It was a pleasure.
Wow, what an insightful and empowering conversation with Sherry Finkel Murphy. I hope you found this as much as inspiration in her words as I did. Sherry reminded us that our best years are still ahead, and that we need to shift our mindset away from outdated ideas of aging and retirement. Instead of seeing 50 and beyond as a winding down period, we should recognize it as a time of incredible opportunity, a time to invest in ourselves, embrace lifelong learning, build financial confidence, and prioritize our health so we can thrive in this next stage. I love how she reframed the concept of chronological age, showing us that we can have 30, 40, and even 50 more years to create, explore, and contribute. She also challenged us to think differently about money, with ideas like the year of not saving, encouraging us to use our resources to create meaningful experiences and set ourselves up for success in the long run. And of course, the importance of community and flexibility, whether it's in our careers, our relationships, or how we structure our lives. If any part of this conversation sparks something in you, whether it's the desire to reinvent your careers, start a business, or just feel more confident about what's next, I'd love to support you. Book a complimentary breakthrough coaching session with me, where we'll take a deep dive into what's holding you back and create a clear path to help you move forward with confidence and purpose. Just head over to itsmytimenowcoaching.com to schedule your free session. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who needs to hear this message today. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring conversations that will help you step into your next chapter with clarity and courage. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. And until next time, remember, you are not done yet. You have so much more to give, and your time is now.